Good evening, good people. And thank you for joining this incredibly important, this critically urgent call. I'm so grateful that you're here tonight. I'm going to be your host for the evening, Ashley Woodard Henderson. And I'm so grateful that each and every single one of you didn't regard it robbery to be joining with us tonight. Right now would be a great time to get your snacks, get your hydration methods, take your phone out and get on all your social media and tell your friends that you are on our Eyes on Ice call tonight. This is a good time to go into the group chats and let all your girlfriends, your boyfriends, everybody know that we are here and we are doing incredibly important work tonight and that they are welcome to join us. This is the second training that we're holding because this is just been overwhelmingly supported by you all. This call to, at the very least, rein in ICE is the work that we're going to be about tonight. We are so grateful to stand alongside you during this difficult time in our country, and we appreciate you continuing to show up each and every day for your communities in all the ways that you are doing life-saving work. Y'all are moving too fast in the chat for me to even shout you out. We've got tens of thousands of people on the call tonight. We're so grateful for every single one of you. Y'all, it's only been a few weeks since federal agents tragically shot and killed 37-year-old Alex Jeffrey Preddy in the Eat Street neighborhood of South Minneapolis after beating him in front of witnesses in broad daylight. This tragedy comes after federal agents shot and killed 37-year-old mother Renee Good in Minneapolis, 43-year-old father Keith Porter Jr., among others whose lives have been stolen at the hands of ICE and the immigration system. For nearly 2 months, federal agents ramped up immigration enforcement operations in Minneapolis, and they continue to do so in other parts of the country. This is why so many of you have protested against ICE in our communities, and you've demanded that they get out now, right? I've seen you with the ICE out buttons and the hashtags. I've seen you in the streets. I've seen your signs. I've seen you posting on social media and making meaning and bringing people into this movement. ICE, though, still continues to endanger communities, and they have to be stopped before anyone else is hurt or killed, y'all. Like, enough is enough. When the government sends masked ICE agents into our neighborhoods, ripping families apart, making people scared to go to work, to school, or to the doctor, that fear is the point. When people are punished for speaking out, for protesting, or they're targeted for being who they are, it sends a clear message. What's that message, you asked? I'm glad you asked. It's telling us to stay quiet, stay small, not to resist. This is the same mindset behind attacks on our schools, attacks on our healthcare, attacks on our right to protest, our right to vote. It's all connected. When the Trump administration sends mass militia to terrorize neighborhoods, retaliates against people who protest, or uses federal power to punish those who speak out, it sends a clear message to stay silent or to pay the price. That intimidation doesn't stop in the streets. It follows people to the ballot box, hitting Black, Latino, Asian, Indigenous, and immigrant communities first and hardest through voter intimidation and deliberate efforts to move the goalposts to equal access to the vote. I know I'm preaching to the choir when I say that exercising our constitutional right to document and record ICE and other federal agents is more important now than it's maybe ever been in our lifetimes. We must continue to bear witness to what is happening. And even more importantly, you've got the right to do so. You have a right to freely express your political opinion without fear of censorship or violence. We all have a First Amendment right to film law enforcement officers carrying out their duties in public. Our government shouldn't be able to operate in secret. And exercising our First Amendment rights continues to be a vital way to push back against authoritarianism and the terror and harm that we're witnessing. This call is going to give you the tools to exercise your rights, and specifically rights when documenting and recording law enforcement encounters. We're also going to share how to take action right now. Despite what this administration wants you to believe, ICE and CBP agents are not above the law, and your voice is essential to demanding Congress, at the very least, rein in ICE. After widespread public outrage, just last week, the Senate blocked a bill that would have sent more money to ICE without any real accountability, Proof that the pressure is working. For all of y'all that were like, what, you really think calling the senators is really going to make a difference? It is clearly making a difference. Negotiations are now underway on the funding package, and we need lawmakers to hold the line. No more money for ICE without reining in their lawlessness and their abusive actions. It's the very least Congress can do. In response to this growing brutality and authoritarianism, the No Kings Coalition is pairing immediate action with our future goal of mobilization. We're building toward our next national mass mobilization on March 28th, alongside all these ongoing trainings and organizing efforts to equip people across the country to exercise their rights and stand up in their communities. You can follow the link on the screen to sign up for more information on how to participate. I want to thank you again for being here and for being willing to do your part to protect our community members. Y'all, if you don't remember anything else I say, remember this, that fear only works to silence us if we let it. Our power comes from refusing to be isolated, practicing solidarity with one another, and refusing to be silent. When communities protect each other, when they practice solidarity, when neighbors show up for neighbors, and when people insist on having a say in decisions that shape their lives, that is, in fact, democracy in action. Voting is a part of that, but so is organizing, so is caring for each other, so is non-cooperation and standing up to abuse wherever it shows up. The truth is simple. They wouldn't be trying this hard to shut our voices down if our voices did not matter. And together, across issues and across communities, we're proving that no amount of intimidation from this evil administration is stronger than our collective action. So, if you're with me, I need to see it in the chat. I need you to tell me that you are here and you are ready to roll. And with that, we're going to get into our programming for this evening. I now have the esteemed privilege to pass it to a Minneapolis community member, movement leader, freedom fighter, Marjorie. I'll be passing it to you next.
Thank you.
Thank you.
2 of my neighbors have been killed, and hundreds of my neighbors have been abducted. But because of ordinary people documenting the actions of ICE, we've been able to show the truth of what happened to Renee and Alex. And we're also able to track what's happening to our community and ensure that our neighbors are not simply disappeared. I'm here to tell you that in the face of fear, we know that we will win. And we know that the way that we win is for you to organize in your community. Don't wait for ICE to come to your front door to do this. Organize today with your neighbors, your school, or your faith community. My name is Marjorie. I'm a proud resident of South Minneapolis, a public school parent, and most importantly, a mom. For the last 9 weeks, I've watched in horror as my beloved neighbors and community members have faced violence, abduction, and terror at the hands of ICE and other federal agencies. Last June, I bore witness to the first large immigration raid in Minneapolis. I went home and picked up my kid from school, knowing that the people this administration is indiscriminately rounding up are his friends and their families. I knew in that moment that I needed to shift my daily life in big and small ways to fight for the city I want him to live in. I know some of you may be thinking you're not qualified or you're waiting for someone to tell you how to do this right. But let me tell you, the person is you. You're on this call. You have 5 neighbors who are waiting for you to talk to them and get organized. And that's how you start. You won't be perfect, you'll make mistakes, but you do have to start. The same day my neighbor Renee was murdered, I witnessed 2 people abducted in front of my house and students and educators tear-gassed at Roosevelt High School. That day shook me to my core, but the truth is that most days for the last 2+ months have felt like this. I felt scared and overwhelmed. But amidst the terror and grief, I've been inspired to see the tens of thousands of people around us, from young kids to parents to elders, all coming together to protect each other. Not because they're not scared and overwhelmed, but because we collectively refuse to allow these masked people to continue to bring terror on our community. Block by block, school by school, neighborhood by neighborhood, we will protect our children and our neighbors from this occupying force that shows no regards for the safety of our neighbors. As horrific as it is, what I and everybody in the city understand, from Renee to Alex to our immigrant neighbors, is that DHS does not tell the truth. We know because of the documentation, like you will learn how to do on this call tonight. We know what happened to Alex because even after Renee was murdered, thousands more of our neighbors are on the streets documenting. in spite of our fear. Despite the real risks, we are out here on the streets trying to help our neighbors. I know I speak for many of us when I say I've never been so proud to be from Minneapolis. I want you all to notice that the people who are doing the work of protecting our neighbors are regular people. We wake up early to make sure our kids get breakfast and get out the door, so we have time to make sure that the other kids on our block get to school safely. And then we're back out in the streets, so that when another neighbor walks them home after school, it won't be to an empty house. This is a crisis, and we can't keep going as business as usual. We are forever changed by this experience, witnessing what is possible when we look to ourselves and one another to build the world we want to live in. We're building that world right here, right now in Minneapolis. Hundreds of thousands of people, including many of you on this call, have taken action to demand ICE out in Minnesota. But our call isn't for them to go somewhere else and terrorize another community. Our call is that we need to hold to account those in charge so no other community experiences our heartbreak. No matter who you are, what skills you have, or where you live, there is a role for you. There's lots of things you can do. But what I'm asking you to do is organize today, tomorrow, the next day, in your own community, so we can have a democracy that keeps our families and our neighbors safe. Now I'll turn it to Buell.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bill, and I work with the ACLU Speech Privacy Technology Project, where I fight to protect the First Amendment rights of grassroots activists and organizers. I'm honored to be here tonight with you all to talk about your right to record immigration and law enforcement. So let's get into it. Next slide, please. The First Amendment protects your right to photograph or film anything plainly visible in public, and that includes immigration and law enforcement, so long as you're not trespassing or violating a lawful order. So if you're in public and you see ICE, you're legally allowed to record them. Put another way, recording immigration and law enforcement officers in public is not a crime, and they cannot arrest you or punish you for that alone. But you should make sure not to physically interfere with the officer. The First Amendment does not protect interference or obstruction. And we'll talk about this more later, but maintaining a reasonable distance from the officers reduces their ability to falsely claim you were interfering or obstructing their operations while you were recording. And I also want to note that on private property, the owner can set rules about photography and video. So also keep that in mind. Next slide, please. If an officer demands to see your phone or tries to take it from you, remember that they need a warrant. If you are not under arrest, then law enforcement officers need a warrant to legally confiscate your phone without your consent. Let me say that again. If they do not have a warrant signed by a judge, ICE cannot take your phone without your consent. If you are arrested, they still need a warrant to search your phone's contents. The government may never delete your data under any circumstances. Next slide. So while you do have a right to record law enforcement in public places, there are some important limitations to keep in mind here. The First Amendment does not protect civil disobedience, even if your motivation is law enforcement accountability or sharing law enforcement abuses with the public. So you can still be subject to punishment for breaking otherwise valid laws. So, for example, many states have hands-free driving laws that make it illegal to have your phone in your hand while you're driving. So in that case, if you're recording ICE from behind the wheel while you're driving, you could still be pulled over or cited for breaking that law, even though you were recording at the same time. And remember that if you're obstructing or physically interfering with their operations, you could be arrested and punished for that, even if you were doing so while you were recording or you did so to express yourself. And also, as a side note, some states do have two-party consent laws that would apply in private interactions. So you might want to think about that when you're thinking specifically about private interactions. Next slide, please. So even though you do have a right to record immigration and law enforcement agents in public, that doesn't mean it doesn't still carry risks. The Trump administration is repeatedly disregarding fundamental First Amendment principles and we're seeing many officers are still retaliating against people who record them. Some agents might react harshly to those who record their activities by threatening, making arrests, or worse. And so even though that kind of retaliation is an illegal violation of your constitutional rights, the fact that it's a violation may protect you from prosecution and punishment once it goes to a judge, but that's still clearly a painful and draining process to have to go through. And then there's also the threat of physical force on the spot. Agents might pull out their guns, spray chemical irritants, or assault people. And so your physical safety and the safety of those around you and the person who's being detained is a top priority. And we'll talk more about some of the ways to reduce those risks a little bit later. Okay, so what about alerting people to ICE's presence? We've talked about recording. What about alerting people that ICE is there? The First Amendment generally protects sharing information about what law enforcement officers are doing in public and where they're doing it, so long as you're not obstructing or interfering with officers doing their jobs or specifically intending to help someone evade law enforcement. So some people might share information about immigration law enforcement presence by using their voice, by texting into a group chat or posting on social media. And some people might use instruments like whistles. And the First Amendment protects communication that's intended to alert the community, regardless of the kind of expression that you're using. So for example, people might want to summon those who are willing to come out and witness or document or deter abuse and hold ICE officers accountable. People might want to warn vulnerable and risk-averse neighbors of the threat of excessive force, harassment, wrongful arrests. And they might want to alert people who wish to shield their children from the trauma of witnessing law enforcement abuses. So there's no court decision specifically about whistling, but we have no reason to think that it would be analyzed differently than other means of communication or expression. So no matter what means, sorry, next slide, please. But remember that no matter what form of communication you're using, whether that's your voice or a whistle, it's important to keep in mind, again, that the First Amendment does not protect obstruction or interference with law enforcement, or expression that is specifically intended to help a particular person or group of people evade law enforcement. So you also will want to remain aware of relevant regulations like noise and traffic ordinances, which can be enforced against you. Okay, now I'm going to pass it to Anu to tell us about more ways to reduce risks while recording immigration and law enforcement.
Thanks so much, Buell. Can we go to the perfect? Okay, so we've now heard from Buell what your constitutional protections are. So I'm going to share some practices that we're recommending that tend to reduce risks when recording and documenting law enforcement, including immigration enforcement. But I just want to be really clear, and as we have tragically seen over and over again, all of these recommendations can't and won't eliminate all risk. Unfortunately, we can only control our own behavior, and we can only do what we can do to keep ourselves as safe as possible, but we know that we're not the only or main actors in this story. So we're really going to focus on recommendations that try to center people's safety. How can we stay as safe as possible, and de-escalation. So the first thing that I just want to recommend is maintaining distance. So a good rule of thumb would be to be enough steps away from any law enforcement officer that they would have to affirmatively walk towards you to be in physical contact. So that means that you are far enough away that they cannot reach you without having to move. You really want to try to avoid any sudden movements and to remain as calm as possible, which understandably can be difficult in these situations. If the officer becomes violent, which we have obviously seen, try to remain as calm as possible and allow the footage that you're getting to speak for itself. Keep recording as long as you can do so safely. And narrate what's happening to you. Focus on facts such as the time of day, the number of agents, who's around, the force that they're using. So keep recording. Try to stay as calm as possible. No sudden movements. As Bill mentioned, for safety reasons, also, we recommend that you don't record while you yourself are driving. Of course, if you have a passenger in the car, that's a great alternative, or if you have a dash cam, or if you can safely pull over. But we recommend not recording while you're driving. Um, we also recommend that you film openly, that the law enforcement understands that you're filming and that you keep your hands visible at all times. And a part of that too is following instructions. So if you're given a direct instruction by an officer to move back, to move to the side, that you follow those instructions, but that you document yourself complying with those instructions, and that if you can, through all of this, safely, if you can do it comfortably, that you continue to film. And then lastly, as Beal mentioned, we recommend to keep yourself safe, to de-escalate, to never physically restrict or obstruct law enforcement. And so those are some tips, and I just want to reiterate, obviously, this is all we can do to keep ourselves safe. We're not the only ones in this equation, but we're trying to reduce risk as much as we can. Okay, so we are now going to practice some of what we have learned here. We're going to do a little bit of a role play, Buell and I. So hopefully you'll give us some grace for our acting. I am going to be playing a law enforcement officer, and Buell is going to be a community member who is observing an officer, me, documenting an arrest. Hey, you, back away.
I have a First Amendment right to film ICE.
I said, back away.
I have a right to document ICE. Hey, that's my phone. I was recording with that.
Not anymore, you're not.
Scene.
Okay. So we're going to try this one more time. It's going to be the same situation, and we're going to see what changes. Hey, you, back away.
Okay, officer, I'm backing away.
Okay, go ahead.
Scene. Okay. Um, okay, so let's talk about what we just did. In both scenarios, I was exercising my right to record immigration officers in public. And from a legal standpoint, the Constitution should protect me from arrest or prosecution for recording in both cases. But you also may notice some key differences in how I handled the officer's aggression. So in the first scenario, I used my rights to argue with the officer. And even though the First Amendment does protect that speech, arguing with an officer can also escalate a situation, and it might increase the risk of putting me and others in physical danger. Whereas in the second scenario, I simply exercise my right while also de-escalating. I actually don't have to announce that it's my First Amendment right in order for the First Amendment to be in full force protecting me and what I'm doing. And I achieved the same result, which was a recording of the officer's activities, but I also reduced my risk a bit and the risk to others around me. But of course, this does not eliminate all risks. Many people do exactly what I did in that second scenario, and ICE might still act aggressively. So just keep that in mind while you also do your best to prioritize your safety and the safety of those around you.
Yeah, just to reiterate that fact that federal agents killed Alex Preddy while he was out on the streets to record their conduct. And it just shows how risky the current situation is and the limits on terms of our safety of the First Amendment. So we're offering some practices that tend to reduce risks, but to be clear, they don't eliminate all risks. And even if you do everything exactly correct, we can't eliminate all risk. We can only control our own actions, and we can't control the actions of others. So if we could put the slides back up, I'm going to talk a little bit more about some best practices when recording. So you're out, you're on the street, and you are recording and documenting law enforcement, immigration enforcement activity. It's really important to capture as many details as you possibly can. So that means that any documents the agents produce, if you can see what actual documents they are, if you can see what the names are on those documents and what they are positing that they are allowing them to do, any weapons that the officers are carrying, what badges they have, what uniforms they're wearing, what agencies they're with, if they're, close to their vehicles, if you can get license plates, if you can get any kind of identifying information you can get about who those law enforcement agents are, what agencies they're with, is very helpful. And then, information that kind of make sure you know where you are. So street signs, landmarks. If there are other people recording or other cameras that you can see, just sort of identifying what those are, that might come in handy. If there's multiple angles needed, if you need to find other people that were also taking video, just knowing who else is out there taking video can be very useful. We really recommend, if you can help it, to not stop recording in between shots. So if there's multiple, if it's chaotic and multiple things are happening, to just keep recording, even if you're not always focused on the action. And then after the incident, if you've recorded something, interactions with law enforcement, an arrest, something else, violence, we really recommend that you make a copy of the footage as soon as you can, as soon as it's possible, on another device, and do not edit the name of the file. If you want to edit the footage, do it from that copy, and that could help the original stand up as evidence in court if it's needed. And then, depending on what you've recorded, to share the footage with the victim's family or an attorney, and so they can decide if and how to release it. Okay, so if we go to the next slide, we're just thinking there's been so much amazing work that's been done to train people around the country. Many rapid response networks around the country have stood up and are doing incredibly brave, amazing work to protect their neighbors. And many of them have been using this acronym SALUTE as a mnemonic to help remember kind of what types of facts to document when documenting and recording law enforcement, including immigration enforcement. And we know that, like, especially in these chaotic situations, that what we really need to focus on when you're recording is the facts that can really help focus on documenting and sharing relevant information so that we aren't just spreading fear and panic, which obviously abounds right now. So salute, it stands for size. So if you can record how many officers, how many vehicles are at the scene that you can see. Actions, what are those officers doing? Are they questioning bystanders? Are they going door to door in a community? Are they arresting people on the street? Are they at a Home Depot? Location, of course, and being as specific as possible. If you can give an address or if you can give a corner. Uniform. We know that right now can be very hard to tell what agency even these law enforcement agents are from. So as much detail as you can give about the clothes they're wearing, what color their uniforms are, and if you can tell what agency that they're with, or at least what it says on their uniforms, and then the time and date, and being as specific as possible. And then equipment and weapons. So if you can see safely if they're all carrying pistols, if they have specialized vehicles, if they have any other kind of specialized equipment or weapons, that it would be important for people to know to determine their own risk level and safety in the area. Okay, so if we go to the next slide, I'm going to just transition a little bit and spend just a couple of minutes talking about protest safety, which, sort of goes hand in hand with documenting and recording law enforcement. So we know that, and we've seen the incredible outpouring across the country. Communities are really standing up, holding rallies, vigils, coming out for their neighbors to protest ICE enforcement and to demonstrate solidarity with the people of Minneapolis and all of the other communities that have been bearing the brunt of ICE and CBP's brutal conduct. And so we just want to take this moment as a good moment to remind ourselves of the importance of assessing our personal risk tolerance and the importance of creating a safety plan if you're planning on participating in any of these actions. So the first thing I want to talk about is protecting your privacy. And I want to say that, especially from the ACLU, our privacy experts like Buell and others could literally do a whole hour-long training just on this. But just a few tips that help protect your privacy while participating at protests or any mass demonstrations where there's going to be a lot of people and you know there's going to be law enforcement, um, is we really recommend that before you go to a protest or any kind of community action, you turn off all biometric unlock functions on any of your devices or your phones. So that's things like if you have facial recognition to unlock your phone, or if you can use your fingerprint to turn that off and instead to use as a complicated code to unlock your phone. Um, we recommend that if you have to have your phone, if you have to have it on, for safety reasons, for communication, that you really use encrypted messaging apps like Signal or others to talk to folks about details about the protest or where you're going to be or activities you've engaged in. If you can, put your phone in airplane mode or turn it off if you don't need it. Trying to reduce the amount that they're able to track your location or track your data. Um, so just thinking about some of those privacy protections before you go. The other thing I'll say, just on, creating a safety plan, it's really important before you go to any kind of event like this to make sure you have a safety plan in place. And that someone who isn't going to the protest knows what your safety plan is, knows what your plans are, and so that you can check in with them and they can make sure that you've made it home, and can start alerting folks and getting engaged if you haven't. Okay, so now we are going to turn to some Q&A that have come up. Um, and Buell, I'm going to start off with you. So we got a question in around, you talked about being at a safe distance. We did the role play about this. We have a recommendation that you're at least far enough that the officer can't touch you without moving. But is there a distance of how far away you have to be to legally film? Is there a law to follow in terms of how many feet away you must be or kind of anything else?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So legally, there's no bright line for how far away you need to be while you're recording ICE. But there are some states that have specific laws that officers could invoke to tell you to back up a certain distance. But for those of you that live in states without those laws, you'll just have to assess for yourself what a reasonable distance is, and you can also take cues from the officer. But there's no clear law in place about how far away you need to be while you're recording.
Okay, so use your best judgment and maybe do some research to see if your states have any of those laws on the books. Got it.
Okay, I'm just taking a look here. So I have another question. If someone does get wrongfully arrested while they're recording, what are the first things they need to do for citizens and non-citizens? Do you want to take that one?
Sure. So, if you see someone being wrongfully arrested while recording, I think all of these same suggestions apply. So, document everything you can immediately to make a detailed recording of the incident, including the officer's badge number, patrol car number, the agency they're with. If you can, collect any other videos too of the incident that bystanders have and get their contact information to be able to share with the person who's being arrested. And if you can, find out the person who's being arrested name, and a way to make sure that you can get this information that you're collecting to them. Otherwise, you can also report it to your local ACLU. Every state has an ACLU affiliate. You can Google that information and report that to the local ACLU. Or if there's another legal team that you're working with, if you're, on the ground, you might see a marshal close by. If there's other folks that are kind of helping keep the protest going and keep people safe. Just trying to get that information to people who can use it to help the person who's being arrested. Okay, so let's say, Buell, that you have documented law enforcement activity, and then an officer comes up to you, and you're trying to back away, you're trying to de-escalate, but they take your phone. Can that officer delete what you've just recorded?
No, not only can they not legally take your phone away from you without your consent, but under no circumstances can they delete anything on your phone legally. So and that's even if they have a warrant, even if you consent, even if they arrest you, under no circumstances is the government allowed to delete the data on your phone.
Okay, and so is there a difference between press recording ICE activity and regular people, community members?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The First Amendment equally protects the press and non-professional reporters that are recording ICE activities. So you don't need to be a professional for the First Amendment to protect you.
Okay, good to know.
Okay, and we talked about this a bit, but again, what if ICE demands your phone while they see you recording?
Yeah, I think, you've covered this, but I guess we really just want to make sure, if you're not under arrest, ICE cannot legally confiscate your phone without a warrant signed by a judge. Even if you're arrested, as Beal said before, they can take your phone, but they still need a warrant signed by a judge in order to search the contents stored inside it. Um, we should say that just because the law says that they need a warrant, it doesn't mean that they still might not try to demand it anyways. And if they do, you really have to make that decision if you want to comply or not, based off of your particular risk considerations, and what environment you're in, how safe you feel. But under the law, they cannot legally confiscate your phone without a warrant. Okay, so in that same vein, can law enforcement order you to stop recording? Is that a lawful order?
Yes, I love that you asked, is that a lawful order? That is not a lawful order because recording ICE is not a crime. So even if an ICE agent tells you to stop recording, you're not legally required to follow it. So, in that scenario that we did the role play where the officer told me to get back, what if the officer said, stop recording, stop recording? The First Amendment protects my right to record law enforcement, and so that's not a lawful order. As long as I'm not breaking some other law, as long as I'm not interfering or obstructing, I'm not legally required to follow it. But again, refusing to comply with an officer's order carries its own risks. Anytime you do something that ICE doesn't want you to do, they might retaliate, they might respond aggressively. So just keep that in mind. And I think that may be all the time that we have for our Q&A. So I'll pass it back to you, Anu.
Okay, thank you so much, Beal. And I'm actually going to turn it now over to Erica Andiola, who is the political director of the National Day Labor Organizing Network, to share the work her organization has been doing to protect our communities.
Hi, everyone, and thank you to Indivisible and everyone who convened this urgent call. And thank you all for showing up for tonight with your hearts open and ready to take action. My name is Erika Andiola, and I serve as the political director for the National Day Labor Organizing Network, otherwise known as NDLON. And right now, we meet at a moment of deep pain and outrage. Across the country, immigrant communities are not only living in fear of assault and imprisonment, they are also enduring and witnessing deadly violence. As as others said before, in Minneapolis last month, Renee Good and Alex Preddy were shot dead in encounters with ICE and Border Patrol. The deaths of these witnesses, our allies, as well as the many hidden deaths of immigrants in detention and the deaths of causes other than gunfire, have shocked the conscience of many people around the nation. These are not isolated events. They are part of an escalating campaign of authoritarian brutality. What is happening in Minneapolis is similar to what we experienced in Los Angeles last summer. Immigrant neighbors terrorized, families traumatized, and fear spreading everywhere people gather to work, to live, to build community. The victims of this violence are not abstract statistics. They are our relatives, our neighbors, our colleagues, our friends. With each life lost, the anguish echoes through family homes, places of worship, workplaces, and school playgrounds. We cannot and we must not look away. This moment demands more than passive outrage. It really demands that we show up for one another in person, in peace, full of courage, determination, and love. If you're able to step forward, if you are not at risk of deportation, we are asking you today to consider taking action. Not later, but today. Because while federal power might be vast, our collective presence is powerful, especially when it's rooted in care, accountability, and community. That's why Endelon has launched a campaign called the Adopt a Corner campaign. It really is a call to consciousness. What it means is really a few things. One is to find the places in your community where immigrant workers gather. This could be Home Depots, car washes, delis, day labor centers, street corners. Go there and commit to showing up regularly. Be present, be consistent, build relationships, offer support, stand beside immigrants in the face of unjust enforcement, peacefully, powerfully, and with love and care. This is solidarity in action. It's not performative, it's not distant, but a daily commitment to accompany those in harm's way. This is not about confrontation, it's about presence. Bearing witness, building trust, and letting vulnerable neighbors know that they are not alone. Adopt the Corner, it's rooted in a simple truth. What we always say at Endelon, solo el pueblo salva al pueblo, which means only the people save the people. Throughout history, when government powers inflicts violence or intimidation on marginalized people, it has been the consistent, visible presence of community that has made the difference. Minnesota has taught us so much of that. Studies and those experience have also told us that when people are seen, when there are eyes, relationships, care, accountability, enforcement actions lose their power to divide and terrorize us. Your presence really matters. Your consistency matters. Your care matters. So here today, I want to make a request for you. Please, if you are able, adopt a corner in your community. You can start by visiting our website at endelon.org, adopt a deliver corner, and you will also find more calls to action on the chat to find how you can get involved. Let our love be stronger than their hate. Let's let our unity be louder than their fear. Let our actions reflect how we really are. People unconscious, people of community, people bound together by our humanity. Today, we honor the memories of Renee and Alex and the many others by doing what they stood for: solidarity, courage, and justice. Thank you for your time, your heart, and your commitment. We need all of you. We need you to show up, to stand beside immigrant neighbors, and to live the values we claim. Adopt a corner, be present, be strong, be loving. Gracias. Thank you all so much. And now I'm going to turn it over to Omar Angel Tocho to share about how you can get involved with local organizing in your communities.
Thank you so much, Erica. Muchas gracias. And I just want to emphasize something that our dear sister Erica said, this is solidarity in action, and we need you. We need everybody who comes tonight to the space, and everybody else, everybody in your networks, to connect with the local organizations who are doing mutual aid, who are providing support to families who are in pain, for families who are impacted right now, and get connected to local rapid response networks. We need all of you. We need everybody. We need to take action. My name is Omar Angel Perez. I'm part of Public Citizen. Public Citizen is national organization who is part also of the Not Above the Law Coalition. And something that we are emphasizing in this moment is the urgency of everybody taking action. Could you pass to the next slide, please? And tonight, I want to highlight the work of our dear partner organization, the Detention Watch Network, who's also a member of our coalition, who does a great job of protecting our communities and responding to what is happening right now in our country. The Detention Watch Network has presence in almost 30 states and multiple cities across the country. And we want to invite you to go, the link is in the chat, to the Detention Watch Network webpage, click on the membership tab at the webpage, scroll down, next slide, please. And you find the local organization that you can plug in. Click on the links of the those local organization, register, and take action. Next slide, please. Now, if you cannot find a local member organization of the Detention Watch Network in your locality, so then go and look for what is that mutual aid local organization in your locality, what is that rapid response network in your locality, or even look for a house of worship close to you, or a parent association, and get connected, engage on the work that is happening, provide support, do mutual aid, do rapid response. We need you. As an immigrant person, I'm inviting you to this morning to take action. Knowing your rights, it's very important, but it's the first step. The next step is moving to action, and that's the invitation that we have for you tonight. Back to you, Ashley.
You all, I know you didn't think you were going to come on to a No Kings call and not leave with a call to action. It's coming. It's coming. This country, all of us who have gathered here, and so many people like us, are horrified by the abuses that are committed using hundreds of millions in our taxpayer dollars. According to a New York Times poll, 63% of voters disapprove of the way that ICE is handling its job. And 61% of voters said that ICE had, quote, gone too far in their tactics. This is just one of many polls that indicate that voters are tired of ICE's tactics and prefer actually fixing our immigration system. Voters who watched yet another person shot down in the middle of a Minneapolis street are looking to Congress to rein in ICE. Congress passed a 2-week funding extension through February 13th for the Department of Homeland Security to buy time to negotiate meaningful accountability measures to rein in ICE and Border Patrol. It's now up to the Senate to rein in ICE and CBP. It's the very least they could do. If Congress now renews the ICE budget with no strings attached, it will become complicit, even more complicit, in this violence, the violation of our rights, and the chaos that ICE is fomenting every single day in communities like every single one of ours. This is the moment to step up and call your senator and demand that they do the right thing. Follow the link below. We'll put it in the chat to be connected directly to your senator's office. You literally just follow this link. You'll get directly connected to your senator's office. When you're connected, I need you to do a couple of things. I need you to tell them your name. I need you to let them know that you are their constituent. You can give them your city, your zip code. Tell them that you want them to refuse to fund DHS without real limits and accountability for ICE and CBP. And if no one answers, please leave a voicemail. That is equally as important. Also, sign our petition calling on Congress to end these reckless immigration raids and oppose any single bill that would further expand ICE's already massive budget. Y'all, I want to again thank you for taking time to join this call, learn about your rights, and be willing to do your part to protect communities and fight against these harms that ICE is creating in all of our neighborhoods. Your voice and actions truly matter. When we turn intimidation into momentum, we change what is possible. We make impossible things possible. While it can feel daunting to speak out in the face of these threats, other nonviolent movements have shown us that this is what keeps us safer in the long run, that us being out in solidarity with one another, being public with our dissent is what best protects our rights. We hope that the information we've provided on documenting and recording law enforcement encounters is helpful as you continue to support your community. We share your outrage. I'm angry. I am sad. I understand the reasons that you might be fearful in this moment. And I'm also inspired by your eternal optimism and your hope and faith in the power of the people. I commend your bravery and continuing to take actions despite all of the ways that this administration and their goons are trying to prevent you from being courageous. As was just shared, Congress must also do their part to rein in ICE and keep us safe. Your outreach to them is critically essential to them doing the right thing. So please call your members and tell them not one single penny more for ICE brutality in our communities. And please also join us for the next National No Kings mass mobilization on March 28th. If you haven't already signed up to host, tonight's your night. As the Trump administration doubles down on fear and force to intimidate our communities and silence our dissent, good people like you across the country are showing up with courage, with care, and with compassion. Peaceful, people led movements have always been how real change happens. Last year, millions of us took to the streets to make clear that we will not be intimidated and that resolve is growing, y'all. We're only getting bigger by the day. This is a dangerous moment for our democracy. I won't deny it. But it's also a really powerful moment to come together, to rise up in defense of each other, and to defend the freedoms that belong to every single one of us. So I need you to sign up to stay connected for updates on No Kings and ways that you can take action starting right now. Thank you to Marjorie, to Buell, to Anu, to Erica, to Omar, to the people of Minneapolis and every occupied city that is resisting, and to every single one of you, the tens of thousands of you that got on tonight to watch live, and to all of you who will watch the recording later. It is an honor to be in this fight for freedom and justice together with you. We'll see you next time.